Tuesday, everybody. I don't know how happy it is, but we're going to try to make it happy. I was just telling Pearson it's the end of the world, but since we are still here, I am Camille E. Gaines, and I am the host of the Rig on Wheels show and also the CEO and founder of Rig on Wheels Broker and Recruitment Services. And we got here our favorite VP. VP of recruitment over at MVT, Missoula Valley. Well, we're here to give you all the recruitment highlights, hot jobs, news. We got a lot of news. That's what the end of the world is about, right?
Yeah.
That's what I kept telling Pearson. He's telling me things are going to be all right, but I'm your Negative Nancy for today. That's what my nickname is, Negative Nancy. But we're here to give you all the news, the hot jobs, recruitment tips, any industry tips, and let's make history together, guys. So let's start off with what you want to do. Well, let's talk about diesel.
Yeah, let's talk about diesel. We're sitting at $3.54. We went up half a penny. Gulf Coast tends to be the lowest at $3.21 a gallon. California's at $4.72, West Coast at $4.23, got Central Atlantic at $3.81, East Coast $3.57, Lower Atlantic $3.46. We'll see if that goes up, though, with the hurricane that rolled through there over this past week. I suspect when they reset the number next week, that number in the Lower Atlantic in particular at least goes up a little bit. Looks like the Midwest is sitting at $3.52. It's holding steady. It stopped its precipitous decline, but it's holding steady. You're not seeing a large-scale increase in fuel. So that's at least positive. And I think we're going to sit in that purgatory here, excluding certain regional impacts. California's a different breed. There's a couple laws that, depending if Newsom signs them or not, may dramatically impact fuel prices on the West Coast. On the East Coast, though, we'll see what the hurricane does over the course of the week to fuel prices. But everybody else, Midwest, Rocky Mountains, Gulf Coast, I suspect should be okay. But that leads into one of the other things that we're going to talk about, and that is the union workers, the workers there out of the ports. With that said, there are some exemptions for certain chemicals. Fuel's one of those, as well as some other things. So I don't see fuel prices being impacted with what's going on with the 45,000 workers that are on strike right now. But what are your thoughts on the strike taking place right now at this moment?
I think that's the end of the world. That was my end of the world thing. I was like, if it's not one thing, it's another. I mean, I want everybody to get their fair wage and their contract and everything, anything that they're supposed to get and that they're promised or want. I want everybody to get, what they're supposed to. But I also want people to do what they're supposed to do in leadership.
Yeah.
They're making these big bucks, sitting in these fancy offices, pulling up in their limousines, right? And they're making what they're supposed to. And the folk out there on the picket line, the ones that are doing the hard work, and I'm not saying the ones that are in their plush offices are not working hard, because they are. It's a different type of work hard. So I do want to say that. But they know what they're supposed to be paying everyone, but this is a lot. And even if it's not going to be for a long time, it's a lot happening at one time.
Well, let me ask you the question: what do you think these people make on a yearly basis?
A whole lot of dang blasted money. Well, no, not everybody. Not everybody.
Well,
let me
reword that. The people that are on strike,
the dock workers. Mm-hmm. They don't make that much money.
About 80 to 120,000.
No, get the hell out of here.
They aren't broke. Now, their cost, their standard of living has gone down dramatically over the last 3 years, as has everybody. Inflation. But that's part of the motivation here of their union. They've not been to the table to negotiate for about 3 months. Now, neither side has shown much effort to negotiate.
Okay.
But with that said, these folks aren't in the poorhouse. If you have a TWIC card, if you can go in and out of the port, you have a value proposition. Now, most of these dock workers rather not do other jobs, so they're somewhat pigeonholed into this. But one of the challenges, and this is the thing that we get into discussions about unionization,
Here we go.
is the unions represent everybody as a whole. We're not a whole. We're individuals. What you prioritize versus what I prioritize probably going to be different things. We have different needs, different lifestyles, different family dynamics. So with that said, a union generally takes a whole body of people and says, this is good for everybody.
The dock workers making 80 and 90 a year?
Some more, but yes. I've seen no evidence to suggest these people are going broke based off of industry averages. And if they were, what stops them from getting paid? Going and getting a different job, getting into a different profession. Now, are they inconvenienced doing that? But absolutely. But think if you're a truck driver.
Yeah.
And as a truck driver, you don't like what you're making. Let's say that you're working, you've been in the industry for a couple of years, you're making, I don't know, 50 cents a mile, averaging 60,000 a year, and you go, I want to make more.
Yeah.
Well, as an individual, you may go, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to become an owner-operator, or I'm going to train other people. Or I'm going to get my hazmat or my TWIC card, and I'm going to further my career. In the case of this individual, these groups of individuals have somebody else going, oh, no, none of our folks can do that. We all want a universal raise.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, the challenge is I will tell you, I don't care if it's a cop, a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor. You have your good and your bad. You have your top 5% and your bottom 5%. Dock workers, probably the same thing. I bet you they have their top 5% of dock workers and their bottom 10% of dock workers. But a union will generally come in there and talk about it as a whole and go, everybody needs this set wage, let's raise it up. Most people in this country would go, hey, let your top folks make more money. And truck drivers do that right now. If you look at a truck driver, you're a truck driver, and I don't judge anybody for what their priorities are in life. There's some people that go, I need to be home daily, and that's what I'm going to do. We have other people that run the Mountain West states exclusively, and that's hard and challenging, and they make $40,000 more a year doing that because they've decided, I'm willing to stay out, and I'm going to run the Mountain States. Does not make those two people good or bad, but there's separation in pay. When you have a union that would take that dynamic, it is one size fits all, and you negotiate based off of that. So your top 10% ends up holding up the bottom 10%, or the bottom 10% weighs down the other 90%.
Okay, so right when I was trying to root for these folk. I'm a turncoat.
I don't wish them bad.
No, I don't wish them bad. I don't wish them bad at all. However, this definitely changes my dynamic because I'm not going to say as a dock worker you don't deserve 80 or 90,000, but I'm just saying that the dock worker that's working at XPO on a dock is not making 80 or 90,000.
So let's look at the Port of Savannah, and where I'm most familiar is with truck drivers.
Right.
Savannah is a low cost of living city compared to many other areas of the country. However, as an example, a truck driver with a TWIC card, often going in and out of those ports, will be making about $90,000, $95,000 a year.
Right.
So it's why companies that may have a dedicated account in the area and they've never done business in Savannah can get lured into a dedicated account and go, why can't I get truck drivers?
Right.
Because you're wielding a knife at a gunfight. So you're trying to hire drivers for, XYZ shipping. You're trying to pay $1,000 a year, not understanding that everybody, if you live in Savannah and you're a truck driver and you want to invest in yourself and you have the background that allows it, you get a TWIC card because that's where your most money and best home time is going to be. There's other jobs these folks can do, but if you're a dock worker now, you probably still want to do that, have the same schedule, get home the same as much. So you're choosing that this is all I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. Now give me a raise. As an individual, if you're really good at your job, have no problem with you going, hey, I'm better than Joe over here. I'd like to be compensated a little bit more because of it. In this case, as is the case with many unionized positions, that negotiation is not allowed to take place. So the challenge right now is I don't expect this to go long. It appears that the government's not going to get involved as much as they realistically could because of the nature of the strike.
Right.
Just kind of like pilots. If pilots at an airline decided to go on strike, the government has the ability to go in there and go, you guys need to come to the table and negotiate, but there won't be a strike because the country depends on the services you provide to them.
And they asked Biden administration not to get in. Well, they did more. They told him not to fucking get involved.
Yes. And so
I thought that was very professional.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the thing is that they need to come to the table. Now, with that said, based off of what I'm hearing, I don't see this being too long of a thing. I think it probably goes a few weeks. But
that's going to interfere with my Amazon.
It will interfere with your Amazon. So some people, you're the real victim of the strike, Camille.
Yeah, I did want to say that. That's why I said that.
Now, with that said, I take the view of Erin McLaughlin. She's an economist here. A port strike would paralyze. Well, there's this take here, and then I'll go with the other take. Her take is a port strike would paralyze U.S. trade and raise prices at a time when consumers and businesses are starting to feel relief from inflation. There's no easy plan B. While shippers have already begun diverting some cargo to the West Coast, which we'll get into that momentarily, capacity for such alternative options is limited. I take more the view of Proxima Vice President. The labor strike at East Coast and Gulf Coast ports are generating considerable discussion, but their actual impact on the supply chain for the peak holiday season may be less severe than anticipated. Most holiday merchandise is already in the U.S., so while concerns about delays exist, many shipments for the holiday rush have already been made thorough. Mm-hmm. So the thing to keep in mind here is all the Christmas shopping that takes place, which is really important to the economy.
Yeah.
All that's in a warehouse someplace, most likely in most of these locations.
Mm-hmm.
It's not coming in from the port. You will have isolated, and you kind of read that as far as some of the stuff being impacted by it, but you will have isolated items here or there. Do you want to read what you were showing that what might be impacted? I'm not sure where your source was.
Yeah, Instagram. So it's very valuable.
Compared to some of the news channels, it probably is.
It's very valuable. But it actually did come from the Houston Chronicle, is where it came from. And it was talking about in the first week on the strike. So from today till next Tuesday, till we talk to you guys again, we should encounter shortages on fruit, vegetables, and other perishable food items, for obvious reasons. So it looks like the first week or so of COVID.
Similar in a much limited scale, but similar.
Yeah.
I will say this. So where we will see it, and it gets into the new other part of the story talking about what freight rates are going to do, where you'll see artificial blips in rates, is already you have companies starting to do strike surcharges. So you have companies going in there that if you're sending me into the Southeast and I have to get out of the Southeast, A, you need to pay me a turnaround rate, or B, there's going to be a surcharge. So as more of this stuff goes through the port of Los Angeles, which is already at capacity, Seattle, Long Beach, and a couple other ports, what will end up happening is you'll see a large pickup on freight off the West Coast going to the Southeast. The challenge with that is that there won't be the freight to match. When you consider that the hurricane that came through last week had an impact on what's going on, there's still flooding and power outages in a large swath of land, both in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, etc., Virginia. So that's already been impacted. So you'll see a large increase. The freight rates don't show it yet. We'll probably see that next week. As we look at freight rates overall, as an example, available loads increased 1.2%. Available trucks decreased 3.4%. Rates saw a decline of 0.08%. Again, we've talked about this week over week. It's in that purgatory. It's not really going up or down. It seems to be in hold. The big news here, a port strike is imminent. Expect a 15 to 20% increase in spot rates within the next month. Prepare for supply chain disruptions, in particular in the reefer and perishable goods. The issue is you will see rates increase either next week or the week after 10 to 15 to 20% because you don't count loads that aren't there. So you'll see the rates go up, but if someone's coming out empty, there is no spot market rate to compare to. So I would hope that the rates would go up 20%, in particular going to the Southeast. That's not going to make up the difference, though, because you're going to have a lot of people that come out empty because there's going to be fewer loads coming out of the Southeast. On top of
So
that,
be careful, guys. Don't think that, oh, life is wonderful, because it's almost going to feel like Florida, nothing coming back out.
absolutely. And for an owner operator fleet that's done business out of Florida, you make your money coming in because you're either going to come out empty or you're looking for a load that can get on your trailer quick and get your fuel paid for, and you get back into the real world as far as freight goes. So you will see next week that freight rates will go up dramatically, but it's not going to make up the difference of the fact that there's not freight coming back out. So I most likely would expect available loads to go down, but the average rate to go up. So that's going to be a weird dynamic to watch over the next week.
And let me say this: I'm not going to say I don't like unions. Well, I don't like unions, but some unions I like. Police union,
Not me.
Okay. Well, some unions I like. Police unions, I think. Teachers unions, no, because I don't think they do enough for teachers. Anyway, that's not even the point, because I'll go down a whole rabbit hole. But this guy on LinkedIn gave a great perspective, and I wanted to say this, and I was going to share it on LinkedIn, and I still will share it, but I wanted to talk about it on here first. And he's an entrepreneur, and he also writes for Wall Street. And his name is Ken Kwan. And he says dock workers hit picket lines in a historic U.S. port strike that could impact prices. Okay. While I understand, these are his words that I'm reading, while I understand U.S. dock workers' challenges, I can see technology impacting their work. And we always talk about this. I wanted to give this man a high five. This is how longshoremen / dock workers who move cargo between ships and trucks in China actually do their job. Men and women do their job. They do it in front of computers thanks to 5G autonomous vehicles, which is AI. So with me first being part of an underrepresented group, not unrepresented, but because I am represented, I am a woman, I am here. Beyonce has quite a few songs about us, but underrepresented group. So a lot of times being a dock worker or let me get the right union term, the longshoreman, that is considered forever traditionally a male-dominated field.
Yeah, heavily.
Okay, heavily male-dominated. If you do see a woman on there, she has to have a hard hat, the whole nine. But if now we're talking about these folk being in front of the computer because they're ran by autonomous vehicles, 5G vehicles, AI, let's go back to Obama's administration when he begged everybody to get their science degrees in computers and everything else, because everything was going towards that. He was literally begging folk. This is part of that. So I'm not saying that these people should lose their job. That's not what I'm saying, but they definitely need to re-educate themselves, because when you have strikes and you take the American economy and grab it by the Kohanas, what is it called?
Better be careful what Spanish I throw out there.
Yeah, the balls, right? So the American government doesn't take well to that, right? And then our government definitely affects global change. So that doesn't fare well. So in logistic terms, not trucking as much, but in logistics terms, the AI and autonomous vehicles or autonomous land is so much more advanced than in trucking. We know that, right? So this is letting them know we got to get this ball rolling.
Yeah, the challenge here is most of this happens over time, though. It's what we've talked about with truck drivers. Their job will change. The industry that my grandfather entered into 55, 60 years ago when he got into trucking,
Evolution.
I probably wouldn't recognize it.
No.
Wouldn't even recognize that he went through challenges and struggles and just day-to-day life that I wouldn't be able to comprehend today. The jobs change over time. They do. I will point out that 150 years ago, 98% of the population in this country was in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
That's changed. It's an economic term, creative destruction. People do lose jobs and stuff, but they tend to go into other stuff or start businesses. In most cases, always different, individual by individual. Our industry will change.
Yeah.
10 years from now, I promise you that drivers probably will be much more tech savvy than
they're going to be considered operators.
They'll still be in the truck, but they'll be more tech savvy, and it's already happening. If you look at mechanics, ASC certified mechanics on Class 8 trucks, they do a ton with computers now and diagnostics to figure out what's going on. A truck now today can get in and out of the shop in a fraction of the time it could just 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that I advise drivers on is be adaptable, be ever changing. Understand that what you like today may be different for you depending on your life circumstances as well as industry forces.
Be open-minded. Do not be a closed-minded person. And that's what I'm saying. Don't think of it as a loss of job. Think of it as you need to continue your education because your position is going to be evolving. It's just considered evolving.
Yeah.
You're always evolving.
20, 30 years ago, what you do for a living didn't really exist.
Right.
And if you went back in time and talked to somebody 30 years ago and explained what it is that you do, they'd look at you and go, "What? Why? Like, what happened?" And you go, "No, there's a bunch of us now. There's this is not novel what I do.
I'm not special."
Yeah, not special. I mean, your mom says you are, but not necessarily.
In a different way.
Yeah, in a very different way. And so the thing about it is with any occupation, if you're a driver, if you're a mechanic, a plumber, a doctor, a welder, you have to be adaptable and adjust. Life will be different 10 years from now. We don't know what's going to force that difference. Who could have predicted 3 years ago we would have had a global pandemic, which sped up a lot of stuff like Skype and Zoom and all sorts of stuff. But life changes over time. If you are the person, and this is the thing I try to keep in mind as I'm going to get later into my second half of my career here, is don't become that begrudging old man. That one that goes, "I ain't changing for nobody." It's one of those things that life changes and you have to adapt and you have to mold yourself. Part of the struggle here is a lot of that stuff at the port needs to be automated.
Yes.
For the drivers, and I've spoken to a lot of drivers that go in and out of the ports. It's inefficient.
As hell.
It takes forever. Their load's there, but it takes forever for them to get it. Talk to people that make a living out of the port alone. They will tell you horror
stories. That's what I was just about to say. The line in California's port is ridiculous, and it's like that because the lack of efficiency.
But think about this. You have people at that port right now that don't want change, don't want anything to change, want everything to stay the way it's been for the past 20 years. Everybody outside of their profession
That's so ungodly.
Everybody outside their profession goes, "But you guys aren't doing a good job. Like, it is extremely inefficient." A lot of this automation here is things have to change. We cannot stay where it is. If you look at the best entrepreneurs in this world, they find a problem to solve. They find something that people either want to buy a product or a service that solves a problem. If everybody could just come in and go, "Nope, not the way I want it done, though," and stop that transaction from happening, we'd never progress as a country.
Yeah, I'm not going to do the whole Bible told me thing, but what I will say is for all of my believers that don't want evolution and all of that type of stuff, open up your Bible because that is exactly what it is from the first book to the last book. But that's neither here nor there.
I'll point out the sale of the remaining 112 yellow terminals starts today. So is today October 1st or was yesterday?
No, it's today.
Today. So October 1st, the sale of the remaining 112 yellow terminals. We're about to the home stretch. Through the sale of a lot of this stuff, the $700 million that was owed the U.S. taxpayers got paid off.
Another union-based situation.
It was.
People live. I just want to point that out.
A total of 47 owned terminals, 65 leased properties with more than 3,100 and 4,000 doors respectively will be on offer beginning today. The biggest owned properties up for sale are a 426-door, 103-acre facility in Chicago Heights, Illinois, followed by a 304-door, 51.2-acre terminal out of Maybrook, New York. The largest leased properties on offer are 325-door, 54-acre facility in California, followed by another one in Kansas City. A total of 16 of the leased properties are basically out of California. So they had primarily most of their footprint in California would have been leased. There's some strategic reasons to do that. But the two rounds of auctions earlier raised 1.88 billion and 82.89 million through the sale of 128 and 23 of Yellow's owned and leased terminals, respectively. Auctions of Yellow's tractors and trailers have since followed. So it's been an interesting thing. They're working through all of that. I'm curious if they're going to release data in terms of the drivers, what's happened on the driver's end. Many carriers kind of avoid taking on Yellow drivers.
Yeah.
Many of the drivers from Yellow can talk about that fact. The challenge is that the Yellow drivers that we have gotten applications from where they've gone on elsewhere and then applied to MVT, they've gone on elsewhere and lasted maybe about 3 weeks and then moved on because they realized that that's not the real world.
Yeah. It's hard to adapt once you have been working and earning money well above the average of, I'm not going to say what you were supposed to make, but I will say is above what everyone else makes at that same job.
Yep.
Similar to the dock worker situation.
I think we're also going to see more interest rate cuts. Likely, Powell is with the Fed is saying that more interest cuts rates are looking highly likely. In remarks before the National Association of Business Economics in Nashville, Tennessee, Powell said the U.S. economy and job market are generally healthy. He emphasized that the Fed is recalibrating its current interest rate, which sits at 4.8%. He also said that the rate is headed to a more neutral stance, a level that neither stimulates nor restrains the economy. Fed officials have estimated the neutral rate at about 3%, significantly below rates. I will point out to anybody on this, more so than the president, more so than Congress, short-term economics are impacted at the Federal Reserve level.
Yeah.
Long-term are definitely with Congress and the House and the president. Primarily, the laws are impacted, obviously, outside of the judicial and executive in the House. But yeah, we will see more interest rate cuts. We'll see what happens. Some economists are predicting that a recession's this year. Some are predicting next year. It's still the minority, though. But it's that economy in flux at this moment. So it's one of the things as you pay attention to economics and you wonder why things happen as we go into the election. There's a lot of reasons to vote for one candidate or the other, whatever you decide on that end. But keep in mind, ultimately, the economy, which I promise you they're going to focus heavily on, both Trump and Kamala are going to focus on the economy. The real power in short-term economics comes at the Federal Reserve level.
It definitely will be. I just can't wait till the election is over, and at least that is completely done, and we'll know which way or the other we are swinging.
Yep.
And that'll be done, and we'll at least have some definite determination there.
Yep.
We need some type of knowing concrete this.
Yep. And then when I'm here next week, we have a charity golf tournament for MVT that's taking place on Friday. I'll come and talk about the charity that we're donating to, how much we raised for it.
That's awesome.
Last year we raised, I think, well over $125,000 for Casa House, which is a really cool charity. Basically, you have kids in foster care that need legal representation. You think about clothing and food and housing, but often one of the things that gets overlooked is it's in a kid's best interest in foster care to have legal representation that represents you.
Absolutely.
So Casa House, really good organization that we supported last year. We'll have that to share next week.
That's awesome. That is something we don't think about. We always think about the shelter part of things, but you don't think about that the kids need legal rep.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about if something bad ever happened to you in your life, you want legal representation. Only a fool is their own legal advisor, I think is one of the sayings. Well, kids don't have that same ability as an adult does. And so that kid having the opportunity to have legal representation that's in their best interest becomes a major asset to them, especially in their next stages of life.
Awesome. That is awesome. Well, what I want us to do, Kayla, if you take us to commercial, because we need to talk about hot jobs, because we have to get America working. And MVT and Rig on Wheels is all about the wheels turning.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everybody. It's like Tuesday still.
Yeah.
No, but all right. So one is going to be our first one.
Let's talk about Division 110. Kayla, if you want to share your screen here, we'll share it with this beautiful audience. We're going to talk about Division 110, primarily used for teams, but we also take solo drivers on it. Solo drivers average anywhere between $1,100 to $1,300 a week. Teams average anywhere between $3,600 to $4,000 a week. See a lot of I-40. So when I get folks going, hey, I didn't know you run in Oklahoma. What are you up there? Generally speaking, it's most likely 110 that they're running along I-40. We're actively hiring out of Albuquerque, El Paso, and DFW. We've also opened up hiring for teams for this division out of Memphis and Nashville as well. Nice length of haul, good money, solid running lanes, customers that we've had going on decades now at this point. Recognized by a lot of our companies. Ryder just recently gave us, for the 5th year in a row, their Dry Van Carrier of the Year. They rely on us extensively. This division's filled with direct customers, not relying on broker boards, especially on teams, but solo opportunities as well. So we take solo drivers out of Albuquerque, El Paso, and DFW, and then teams out of Albuquerque, El Paso, DFW, Memphis, and Nashville. Can we go to the next division? Let's talk about 329. This is my personal favorite division. This is our regional Texas division, weekly home time, really good customers, a lot of drop and hook, like 90% drop and hook in this particular division. Actively taking drivers out of Houston, DFW, San Antonio, and Laredo. We run a lot of that triangle between San Antonio, Houston, and DFW. We'll get a little bit into southern Oklahoma or southwest Louisiana. And then this is a good division for teams. A lot of teams don't realize it. When they look at this, the length of haul doesn't look that impressive. Average length of haul is 200 miles. But with our teams, we'll also have them go out to El Paso and come back. And again, a lot of drop and hook. We set up local drivers at these drop yard facilities to do those last mile deliveries. So our what we consider OTR drivers, who aren't true OTR, but they're the ones on the road, are able to keep the wheels turning. So our average driver on this, making anywhere, a lesser experienced driver of less than a year making $1,200. Once they get more than a year of experience, they're getting up around $1,800 a week. Our teams are making anywhere between $3,800 to $4,200 a week on this. All no touch, no endorsements required. Really exciting division for us. We have customers like Starbucks, IKEA, the Container Store, and many, many more that make this a very consistent division. Currently have about 90 drivers on this account. Need to get that up to 120 over the course of the next 30 to 45 days. So a lot of opportunity here with Division 329. And then, Kayla, do you want to pull up Division 430? This division, we've talked about the Southeast as we were discussing what was going on with the ports. Our big customer on this is Lowe's. Lowe's is going to be very, very busy. With the hurricane that went through the southeastern U.S., Lowe's makes up a good portion of freight here going outbound out of Florida, and then we have other customers going back into the Florida market. This is going to be a division that stays very busy, and with the issues that took place, as a driver, if you're looking, hey, what job can I take that helps people, makes life better? This is one of those jobs because Lowe's is going to be dependent on very heavily as the rebuilding process begins. Very stress-free division. I-10 primarily is going to be where you're going to. You're going to go from Jacksonville over to Houston, Houston down to Laredo, and then Laredo back over to Jacksonville. Don't mind that line. There is not a bridge that's been built over the Gulf of Mexico. You will take the roadways back to Jacksonville. It takes about 4.5 to 5 days to make the trip round trip, averaging anywhere between $1,100 to $1,300 a week. We do have openings for 3 teams on this, and teams are very beneficial because we'll have them doing drop and hook, and they can normally do 2 loops before taking that home time. We hire within a 75-mile radius of Jacksonville, Florida. Currently have about 60 drivers on this account. Could always use another 20 as we're looking at the next several months being very busy on this particular lane. So that's 430, that's 329, and that's 110. With that said, we also have 18 other divisions that we operate at any time. We hire out of markets like Portland, Salt Lake City, Phoenix, El Paso, Albuquerque, Denver, San Antonio, Laredo, Houston, DFW, St. Louis, and Nashville, Jacksonville as well. So if you didn't see a lane or a market that covered where you live, by all means, take a look at any of the markets I mentioned. Plus the fact that Rig on Wheels had about 40 plus other customers that hire from all over the country. So if you are an experienced truck driver looking for your next career path, call 281-968-3100. That's 281-968-3100, or visit rigonwheels.com. I can tell you I'm biased with Mesilla Valley Transportation. I prefer you to be my coworker. But Camille's ultimately going to ask you a series of questions and her team of what do you like, what's important to you, what is your background like. They act as your agent. Imagine that you're a stud of a football player, or studette, as the case may be, and you have an agent that represents you. And so instead of you having to pick up the phone, talk to eight other recruiters, you can have one conversation, and they look and go, hey, these are the 2 to 3 options that probably fit you based off of your background, your needs, your wants. They also will talk to spouses. And so if you have another decision maker in that process, have them on the phone with you and have that discussion. Ultimately, you're going to save a lot of time, a lot of energy. And at the end of the day, you're going to get set up with a position that's best for you, not necessarily best for just one person that you happen to get on the phone with.
Thanks, Pearson. What I was about to say about 429, because you were saying 330 is your favorite, 429 is my favorite of all, because the one thing is with recruiting for a lot of companies, when you talk about hiring out of Jacksonville, a lot of times the carriers want you to take, and either you're going to Atlanta, and you know that's horrible all in itself, or you're doing a ship channel up 95. And not just because of the hurricane and going up 95 is kind of non-existent right now, but just in general, just having to do that paper run up 95. We don't have to talk about the dedicated account or anything like that. Just going up 95 from Miami all the way up to Maine, you don't have to worry about that. You can just do that I-10 and do that loop from Jacksonville to Laredo and back. That is perfect.
It's funny you should say that. So I was up in Maine last week visiting a partner up there.
And you did not eat clam chowder.
No, I had lobster though.
Oh.
I had a lobster roll, which is what you do. With that said, I always look at the trucks. Whenever I travel, I look at the trucks, seeing what different companies I see. I get on Safer and look up what they're about. I had an interesting conversation with an unnamed driver from an unnamed company. He lived out of Florida. He lived a little south there. He's out of Gainesville, Florida. But we got into a discussion there at a local Cumberland Farms, which is like a gas station up there. And he came out of Florida up there to Portland. And he told me that is a hell of a trek. You hit traffic in D.C., and then comes Philly, and then comes New York City. He goes, I went over the George Washington Bridge, which was a 3-hour episode to go basically 2 miles. He goes, hopefully we made a lot of money coming up here. He goes, now I got to figure out how I'm going to get out. Trust me, I-95 is not a lot of fun. If you are taking I-95, you need to be duly compensated for it, because it starts at the South Carolina-Georgia border, where it goes from 6 lanes down to 4 for some weird reason, no real reason. And then once you go there, it's a calamity of events the way that you go up I-95 on that end. Division 430, you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, and a lot of times if you're doing that particular paper run, no, they're not really making too much more than the 429 run.
430.
The 430, I'm sorry, 430. 430?
Yeah.
429.
329 is.
Oh, yeah, okay, 430.
Oh, I know you sold this. I know you know them.
Yeah. So if the 431, you're not making that much more on that paper run, and that's typically what they're doing from Miami all the way up to Maine. And so with saying that, you might be home every week, but you get better home time with the MVT 431.
That's right.
From where you're doing Jacksonville to Laredo, that loop and back. That is just what it is. You get some good home time. Pearson is your co-worker. You got Josue as your co-worker. What better do you want? But I'm just letting you know, seriously. And how much is the orientation pay?
$500. What happens is we get you approved, get you into orientation. We do a So when you commit, you show up when you commit. You show up on that end because we don't reschedule folks. When you show up and you commit, we want to reward those that understand that the value proposition of a driver is being dependable and showing up on time. So we have a 2.5-day orientation. We pay you $500. Because our goal is that while you're sitting in orientation, you should be making what you would be making on the road. You may not be running a mile, but you're not choosing to sit in an orientation class. And I like our orientation class, but no one volunteers to sit in an orientation class. You should be compensated as though you're running miles.
Okay, so this is the thing. The qualifications to work for MVT are being a professional driver, period. Not a driver, but a professional driver. And then being a man or woman of your word, not being a child, will get you a good orientation pay, not get you the minimum wage in your state. Because you do know there are carriers that pay orientation of the minimum wage in your state for the day.
Yeah, the challenge is, and if you've been a driver, you know that if you've not been through it, you've seen it gone through, where you go MIA, you call the driver on Tuesday, or the driver calls the recruiter on Tuesday and goes, it's okay, let's get you in next week, or let's do it the week after that. What ends up happening, though, is it's a horrible way to start the relationship, both for you as the professional driver. Are you really needed, or is this company desperate? And if the company's desperate, that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
Just like speed dating, if the person on the other end of the table is desperate, you're sitting there going, but you're pretty. Why? Yeah. Why are you desperate? Something's off.
You're crazy.
So the same thing goes with a carrier. We want to work with our drivers are set apart by professionalism. So it's about being on time. It's about communication. It's about being engaged with our customer base. At the end of the day, we have very, very good customers. Like I said, we don't rely heavily on the broker boards. There's always a time and a place to use a broker load. And we do have relationships with brokers for those times and places that has value. But the reason why we're recognized by our direct customers for a high level of service really comes down to the driver base that we have. Our drivers are extremely professional. They are safe. We have 0 CSA categories above threshold. We show up on time. We recently picked up a dedicated account up in Ohio that I can tell you our first 200 loads, all 200 were delivered on time. No complications whatsoever, despite starting on that account 2 weeks earlier than we were expecting. Big chunk of that, in fact, an overwhelming majority of that is because we have really good drivers on the account. That becomes pivotal.
And relationships.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
Communication and relationships. That goes for all your what is that guy's name? He's a business consultant, blah, blah, blah. He's real muscle bound. He got long hair. He starts with an H. Kayla might help me. Hanzoli or Hanzozi or.
I thought I knew who you're talking about, but every clue you give me, I get further away.
He's muscle bound.
Now I'm thinking Fabio, and that can't be who you're talking about.
No. He's like a business consultant. He's on YouTube. Anyway, he's on all platforms. But anywho, the purpose is of what I was saying is he was saying this morning, it probably wasn't, could have been last year. I was listening to it at 4:30 this morning. All professional relationships are about communication and building relationships. And everybody wants to do business with who they like.
Yep.
Okay, so whether that means you stay at a job, you work with who you like, or you start a relationship as far as a business relationship with who you like, all of this type of stuff. Takes me back to a very short story. So when my oldest son was a freshman at Spring ISD, he transferred to another school a while after that. Anyway, not the point. He was in basketball at Spring ISD. So this particular coach did not keep his job for winning games and all that type of stuff. And you kind of knew it for some of the games they didn't win. But anyway, the varsity coach said it was the only pile of guys at the entire school that didn't get in trouble and all of that. But he expected the guys, when they walked past a piece of paper and all of that type of stuff, to pick it up. He was real big on his guys doing the right thing. And he said, when he talked to other coaches and others, he'll say, this kid is a Jack A and all of this stuff. And he was like, so why you have him on the team? Like, you're the coach. Deal with who you like. who makes it easy to work with and all of that. So it's the same thing as being a driver, and it's the same thing as being a carrier. You want to be a carrier of choice where your retention is not garbage, where you get a chance to choose the type of drivers that you want. And as a driver, you want to be considered a professional driver and a driver of choice, where you don't have to take just any company just to have a job. That's not the position you want to be in, where you're so desperate that you just got to have a job and no, you want to be able to have a job that works well for your family. And it's the same thing when you're saying, that the dedicated account lows, you all are doing pretty good with that account, even though you started 2 weeks early. That's a lot.
I did not name the account.
You didn't.
No, I did not. We've had a good account up in Ohio.
Oh, okay. In Ohio, because yeah, definitely.
We just got to keep pushing. We do. I think the word you used, and I use it a lot, is coworker, which is really important. The big thing is I view you as my coworker, my direct peer, and that makes a considerable difference. So with that said, as an example, if I worked with a recruiter that worked with me as we're trying to hire drivers, and I, with Josue, want Josue to have accountability and be professional and excel at his job. I may work with Mariana in our HR department. I want her to be professional and do a good job. Same thing with a truck driver. Anybody that works, if it's a Bill and he comes and joins our company, I want Bill to be professional and do a good job. We are all in this together. It is a community effort. And it gets into the segment we talked about in segment 1, where we talked about unionization and having one-on-one individual relationships with people instead of just a large, massive collectus with a third party that's a representative and doesn't really have any vested interest in the outcome. We want to have that relationship with you. We want to discuss with you. We want to talk with you, and we want to go ahead and have that one-on-one contact. So it becomes really important for us. Come and be our coworker.
I just wanted to point out, Meryl said another great show. Thanks, Meryl. I wanted to point that out.
Meryl does a nice job with a company called Hello Retention. For those of you that haven't watched it, when and where can they check out that podcast?
Those podcasts are on YouTube, on the Rig on Wheels show or Rig on Wheels channel on YouTube, and you can go right to the playlist that says Hello Retention, or you can go to LinkedIn as well. Really
entertaining podcasts. I had a chance to be on one of them with you guys. But a lot of information that if you're a carrier, if you're a driver, if you're an industry peer, a lot of lives within a company, how companies can do better to retain drivers and build those relationships. Always find every episode I watch with Meryl and Camille to be extremely educational. And I walk away just a little bit smarter, which is saying something, because I have a lot of teachers that would have been happy to have the results that the podcast seems to give me.
Yeah, but you know what? You work in trucking now.
Yeah, so what do they know?
Right, that's what we always say. But we work in trucking, so we are the economy.
I'm going to take a copy of this and send this to several people I know from high school and let them see that.
Yeah, we work in trucking. But you know what, Kayla, if you can go to commercial with Joe so he can explain about the Blue Beast and show us how big the inside of the condo is.
At Mesilla Valley Transportation, every driver is behind the wheel of a late model International LT, a truck that takes comfort, convenience, and safety to a whole new level. Join us as we explore the impressive features of this powerhouse on wheels. The open road is full of surprises, and sometimes that includes unexpected encounters with wildlife. But worry not, the International LT has you covered. The front end protection guard offers an extra layer of defense, protecting you from animal strikes. Drive with confidence, knowing that you're shielded from the unexpected. We all know how important it is to keep our batteries charged, and our International LTs have your back. The Cummins X15 is equipped with an auto start feature, ensuring that your batteries are automatically recharged when they run low on volts. It's a seamless process that keeps you powered up and ready to hit the road. Disc brakes and an engine brake provide reliable and safe stopping power when you need it most. You can have peace of mind knowing that you're in control. Safety is at the forefront of what we do. Our International LTs are equipped with top-of-the-line safety features to ensure your well-being while out on the road. These tractors are equipped with Bendix fusion protection, collision mitigation, and lane departure warning. Achieving good fuel efficiency deserves recognition. With the International LT, your efforts don't go unnoticed. When you consistently achieve impressive miles per gallon, the International LT rewards you with increased speed. It's a little extra motivation to keep you pushing for better fuel economy. After a long drive, you're ready for a well-deserved break. With the International LT, you can enjoy your rest period in absolute comfort. Thanks to its auxiliary power unit, you can keep the driver's cabin heated or cooled just the way you like it. No matter the weather outside, you'll always find your sweet spot within our International LTs. The International LT understands that comfort extends beyond driving. It's a space where you can truly feel at home. I'm a big guy, and I have room to move around in here. With plenty of room to spare, the International LT accommodates even the tallest drivers. And there's ample storage for all your clothes, cooking essentials, and tools, making life on the road even more convenient. Speaking of cooking, bring along your appliances and don't sacrifice any luxuries thanks to all of our International LTs being equipped with built-in inverters. Dry your hair, make a smoothie, or play a game, all from the comfort of your truck. We take pride in our well-maintained fleet, and if by chance you do come across something wrong on your truck, you're never far from help thanks to our valuable relationship with Penske. With more than 750 brick-and-mortar Penske shops nationwide, their expert team is always ready to assist you. From routine maintenance to unexpected repairs, they'll get you taken care of and back on the road in no time. And there you have it. Just a few things about this late model International LT that make MVT the place to be.
Boy, Joe's happy.
Yeah, he's always so happy. That recorded commercial. But he's always so happy anyway, right?
Yeah, he's a happy guy. But with that said, Joe's got that energy that kind of fills the room. And it does help when you believe in what you're selling, which that definitely helps. And I can tell you, Joe's a bigger individual, has no trouble standing up in that truck. It's not a mid-roof. It is a full sleeper. That sleeper is 71 inches compared to the standard 56. What that really means is it's set up for a team. So even as a solo driver, it is double bunked. You have space to move around. The real benefit is the auxiliary power unit. The APU unit is what allows you that you don't have to power inverter. You have plenty of outlets. You can have a refrigerator in there. You can have a TV in there, video games, blenders. I've seen all sorts of contraptions, even a rice cooker in there. So it allows you to do that with the APU. And most importantly, because every APU is different, they're susceptible to maintenance issues if you don't use them correctly. So part of our orientation is how to utilize the specific APU unit that you have on your assigned truck. So if there's any steps you need to take, how you turn the truck down, how you turn the truck off, what steps you need to take, you will get hands-on, you'll get videos as well as hands-on training on the APU. That APU, as we come into the winter months very soon here, even in the southern U.S., you're susceptible to potential snowstorms or ice storms, high winds. Having the ability to be able to sleep at night and be warm and comfortable becomes really, really important. That APU is a blessing when it comes to that in terms of maintaining a warm temperature in the truck. In particular markets, you're not supposed to idle. So you save fuel economy that way, and there's a lot of benefits to it. Again, it's going to be a 2020 or later international, low miles on them. Obviously, if we get a team, we try to stick them in a bit of a newer unit because they're going to run some miles on that truck. Well-maintained. Penske does a great job for us. Penske and their large network of operations, if you ever run into any maintenance issues, we have big shop facilities at our actual home-based terminals, as well as out on the road. They have subunits that they can use. So if it's going to take extra time to fix an issue with your truck, but you like your truck, you'll get a subunit so you can keep on rolling. And then as your engineered lane comes back, you'll get your original truck. So Penske backs up what they preach with that fantastic equipment.
You know what? It's something that you said that jogged my memory that I wanted to point out is when you mentioned teams. Now, remember, even though Pearson and his group at MVT, the requirement is 6 months. But let's say you don't have quite 6 months or you're new just in general, and you want to team up with somebody that has 18 months or more experience and they're a super professional driver. They have a really good background and experience and all of that good stuff. You all will be able to team up and they will be able to train or mentor you. And then that is how you will still be able to take advantage of working at MVT.
Yeah, and on this show, we've talked about an individual named Roberto Sandoval. He's won a lot of the fuel bonuses, Driver of the Year contests, really strong driver. But how I feel he's benefited our company the most, he's referred about a dozen different people over the years to us. And he's trained a good majority of those folks. Some folks were family, some folks were friends of the family. We've had husband and wives train each other. We've had brothers, high school buddies, people that, hey, I worked at this one company a long time ago, and this guy worked in the office, and now he wants to drive a truck. Can I train him? We've had that scenario. So our mentorship program works that if there's somebody that you know that is an experienced truck driver and you don't have the experience, call into Rig on Wheels, have that conversation of, hey, both of us are interested. I don't have experience, but I have somebody who has a safe, stable work experience with at least 18 months of recent experience that's willing to mentor me out on the road. And Rig on Wheels will be able to place you depending on where you live.
Yeah. So I definitely wanted to mention that to you guys because we didn't mention it this time. And with Joel saying that and you saying that about the sleeper and how big it is, it just jogged my memory. And I was like, nope, something is telling me to mention it because somebody is watching it that needs this info.
Hey, Kayla, can you put that phone number up again one more time? So again, if there's somebody that you want to work with, if you have experience, but you like that you saw the equipment, if you like anything we talked about today, or want to talk about any of your opportunities, again, call us at 281-968-3100. There's a number of people here for Rig on Wheels that are willing to talk to you. Camille possibly can't answer all those calls, so she has a really well-experienced team of professionals on the phone that want to ultimately place you in the best opportunity possible. So again, call 281-968-3100. Visit rigonwheels.com today.
Awesome. Yep. 281-968-3100. But guess what, guys? Everything has to end.
Mi nombre es Carlos Vaz.
Went to a commercial. We're not at a commercial.
We're not at a commercial. But what we're going to do, guys, is see you next time.
Yeah, and I'd also point out if you have any questions that you want us to address or any specific questions on any of the jobs, industry questions, or quite frankly, anything at all, be sure to leave comments here. Send in those messages either on YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you see any of these posted. Be sure to leave a comment, question, or concern, and we'll address it next week.
All right. Talk to you guys next week, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time on Tuesday. Bye-bye.